That was the judge in Christopher Schurr's murder trial announcing that the jury has been unable to reach a verdict in this case, even after she sent them back when they announced they were deadlocked to try and come to a conclusion. They're now saying they cannot reach a verdict.
You're looking at former Grand Rapids police officer Christopher Schurr right now. No emotion, really. Just listening to what the judge had to say, that they could not reach a verdict. So it is a hung jury. And at this point, we are awaiting, she's declaring a mistrial in this. So
the question now is, will the prosecutor decide to try this case again?
Right. Will he refile charges? Will we go through this whole process once again? Now, we're going to wait for any news conference that may come after this and hear from both sides. We do have reporters on the scene in downtown Grand Rapids to give us the very latest on what we know that's happening in the courtroom, but it appears it's come to a conclusion at this point that the judge has declared a mistrial in the second-degree murder trial of former Grand Rapids police officer Christopher Schurr. You're looking at live images right now inside the courthouse after the judge has given that ruling.
Now, from the time they announced that everyone was going to be coming back into the courtroom to the time that information just came out, it was pretty quick. There wasn't a lot of lead time on that. And I say that because we had expected there would be a lot more people outside the courthouse when any announcement came down. But because it was so fast, there's still a smaller crowd outside the courthouse and mostly people carrying thin blue line flags showing their support for Officer Schurr.
Yeah, there's been support on both sides. A little bit of a dust-up and confrontation out there on the sidewalk. One person was arrested, but there really hasn't been any problem since then.
No.
There's been officers on bicycles and just trying to make sure that things stayed calm out there. But some exchange of heated words, but for the most part, no problems.
And we had tried to talk with the defense and the prosecutor yesterday, and at that time, because there was no news from the jury, they had said, we're not really going to go into any details on this. But Ken Kolker's been in that courtroom every single day, and we expect to be able to hear from both sides at this point now that we have this information that the judge declared a mistrial.
Right. If you're just joining us, the judge has declared a mistrial in the second-degree murder trial of former Grand Rapids police officer Christopher Schurr in the death of 26-year-old motorist Patrick Lioya. So I'm hearing from our producer that we'll be able to talk with an expert shortly about this ruling and where things stand right now. And as you mentioned, it could be retried again. It
could be, yeah. I mean, that the prosecutor has to decide if he wants to do that again. Some of the things that came up, you know, this happened 3 years ago, and there were delays. There were court delays, appeals, and then questions about prejudice because of how much publicity this case got even before we got to the trial. So now that all of this has just played out in court, that will certainly be a question moving forward, is how likely are you to find more people in this area who now haven't seen all of this evidence already?
Right. We've had some time, and we have seen that video over and over of the situation that happened on April 4th, 2022, with then Officer Christopher Schurr and Patrick Lioya. So we are awaiting any sort of response. This is outside the courthouse right now. You have a few people gathered, but not like what we've seen over the past few days.
No, there's only a few people there, and a few days ago there were several dozen for each side. One side asking for justice for Lioya, the other saying they stand with Schurr. So it's very quiet for this announcement right now.
Yeah. Now, over 20 hours overall of deliberation for the jury, and they were deadlocked. They said so on Tuesday. And then the judge asked them to go back and give it a try again and talk more about it and see if they couldn't reach a consensus. They deliberated all day yesterday and then came back this morning. They slept on it, and then they told the judge that they are deadlocked, and the judge has now called a mistrial.